صدق الله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية أمير المؤمنين والأئمة المعصومين عليهم السلام. والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. والحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون. الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن. الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود. فطر الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووتد بالصخور ميدان أرضه. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يوم عداوتهم إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الحكيم وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولكل أمة أجل فإذا جاء أجلهم لا يستأخرون ساعة ولا يستقدمون. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. صل على محمد وآل محمد. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. I begin in the name of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. There is no doubt that it's due to His kindness and generosity that He provides for us opportunities such as these where we gather in remembrance and in reflection of Him Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Next we begin this sermon the way the commander of the faithful, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, would begin many of his sermons by saying, Usikum wa nafsi bi taqwallahi al-azim. I advise you and I advise myself to be God conscious, God fearing and pious human beings. Before we continue with the khutbah, as you notice that the gym is not active, so the people will not be able to sit in there. Therefore they have partitioned part of the ladies' hall. And if it's possible, if some of the brothers here can move there, preferably now, so that I don't constantly see people walking across, that would be of great service to us. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. May Allah bless the people that moved, mashallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ahsantum. For the past 2 months or so, we have been discussing the subject of Quranic Eschatology, the study of death and life after death according to the Holy Quran. And 2 weeks ago, when we last discussed this subject, we discussed the beginning stages of Barzakh. And as we have described, and as we know, that Barzakh is that realm of existence that is between dunya and akhirah. Every soul that leaves this particular material world will go into the realm of Barzakh, and that is where they will remain in existence until the hereafter. Last 2 weeks ago, we had discussed the body of Barzakh. And we said that the body that we will have in Barzakh, where our soul will live in, it will be a very similar body to the one that we have in dunya, physically, in the sense of eyes, ears, even color, even gender, race. All of these things will be pretty similar, if not exactly similar, to the bodies that we have right now. The only difference is that there will be no mass to that body. Yes, and because there will be no mass on that body will be much more agile. The body will be able to perceive much more than our material bodies right now can perceive. Furthermore, we had discussed the squeezing of the grave. This is something that we know that every soul will go through. And we explained that the squeezing of the grave is actually experienced by the soul. And that is because the soul, when it is put onto the new body of Barzakh, will find it very difficult to detach itself from the physical body that it had been used to for so many years. And therefore it will stay with that body. And when that body is laid in the grave and when the earth is put upon that body, that suffocation feeling will be felt by the soul. And it is that suffocation that is referred to as the squeezing of the grave that our ulama have explained to us. When that sensation of suffocation then begins to go away, the next emotion that is felt by the soul is that of loneliness. Yeah? The soul finds itself in a very unfamiliar place. It is all alone. It has no idea of what it will experience next. And it feels as if it is trapped in this one small location. Remember, the soul still is not comfortable enough to leave that body that is laying there, right? So it feels this sensation of loneliness, of all alone. And you can mildly compare that to, for example, let's say you go to a new country. And in that country, you don't speak the language in that country, you don't know anyone in that country. That feeling of loneliness that exists, that no one can understand you, you can't explain yourself, you will quantify that, multiply that by infinity. Yeah? And now you find that the soul who has just recently experienced death, right, of its body, and now it finds itself in this new location, all alone, family has left them, everything is all alone. That feeling of loneliness can become very depressing for the soul at that time. Yeah, and it is said here by our ulama then that this is where you will notice different experiences being felt by that soul or by that person. Some who had absolutely no belief in the hereafter, absolutely denial of life after death, will find it absolutely uncomprehendable. How is it that he has a body or she has a body that is very similar to the body that he had, but he knows that that body is dead? How is he still alive at that time? You understand how that experience can happen? Because they didn't believe in a life after death. And all of a sudden they find themselves alive. It is a feeling that they cannot understand and they cannot comprehend. While those who had an understanding, though it may be vague, but they had an understanding that there is a life that is coming after this. Here they find themselves in a state of maybe amazement. Yeah, they are awestruck at the mysterious dimensions of what they are now experiencing. Either way, the soul begins to experience different things depending on how they lived the life of dunya. And here is where our ulama tell us through hadith literature that they've now begin to get the first visitor who comes and visits them in the grave. Yeah, the first visitor who comes and visits the soul at this time is an angel by the name of Rahman. Yeah. The angel by the name of Rahman is the one who activates the spiritual memory of the soul. If you remember a month or so ago, we said that when death happens and the soul is transferred from one body to another, what transfers with the soul is their spiritual memory. The spiritual memory is that memory which holds all of the memories, all of the actions, all of the intentions, all of the thoughts that were carried out in this world. Yeah, everything that we did in this world, every thought that ran through our mind, every action that we did, not just that, the consequences of the actions that we did and the emotional feeling when we did those actions, all of these are stored in our memory. Yeah, and when it's transferred over, it needs an angel to activate that spiritual memory so that we can then connect between what we did and what we are experiencing now. The difference between our spiritual memory in this world and our spiritual memory in the hereafter is that the spiritual memory in Barzakh is much sharper than what we are experiencing here in dunya. You see, here, 5 years ago, if I had a conversation with you, likely I don't remember what I said to you 5 years ago. Yeah, I don't even remember what I did 2 years ago, let alone what I ate last week. isn't it? Yeah. But that is all there in our memory. In the realm of Barzakh, that spiritual memory recalls everything. Yeah. Every action that is done, everything that in dunya we consider as trivial, something small, what's the big deal? Yeah. What's the big deal I was rude to that person? What's the big deal I did this? What's the big deal I did that? It is a big deal. Yeah. It is a big deal. What we have to understand is that everything we do in this world, everything, every action that we do, every step that we take, every intention that we make is a big deal, because in the next realm it is all coming alive for us. Yeah? And it is this spiritual angel, or it is this angel by the name of Rahman, who activates this spiritual memory. We get a tradition from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He was asked by a person by the name of Ibn Salam about the first visitor in the grave, and he says, يَدْخُلُ عَلَى الْمَيِّتِ مَلَكٌ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَدْخُلَ نَكِيرٌ وَمُنْكَرٌ يَتَلَأْلَأُ وَجْهَهُ كَالشَّمْسِ اسْمُهُ رَوْمَانٌ. He says the first one to come and visit the soul, yeah, before Munkar and Nakir come to visit the soul, is an angel by the name of Rahman, whose face shines the way the sun shines. Yeah, when the angel appears in there, he tells the soul, فَيَقُولُ لَهُ أُكْتُبْ مَا عَمِلْتَ مِنْ حَسَنَةٍ وَسَيِّئَةٍ. Write down everything that you have done of good and bad. Yeah, you see, he's the one who's going to bring everything into light so that Munkar and Nakir can come question you about it. Yeah, he's the one who activates that memory. So it is said that the body or the soul at this time says to your Rahman, with what will I write? I don't have a pen, I don't have a paper. He says, use your finger as a pen and your saliva as ink. Yeah. He then says, on what will I write? So he tears off that kafan. Again, remember, he still finds it, the soul still finds it difficult to leave that body, yeah, because it is so attached to it. He tears off a piece of that kafan and he tells him, write on this kafan everything that you have done of good and bad. فَيَكْتُبُ مَا عَمِلَ فِي الدُّنْيَا مِنْ حَسَنًا. So he writes down everything good that he did. It's always easy to remember the good, yeah. It's always easy to recall the good. Yeah. So the first thing he does is he writes down everything that is good. فَإِذَا بَلَغَ السَّيِّئَ. And when he reaches the portion where now he has to write his evil deeds, إِسْتَحْيَا مِنْهُ. He becomes embarrassed now. Yeah. He becomes shy. Yeah. That he doesn't feel comfortable. None of us feel comfortable exposing our evil deeds to anybody, do we? Yeah. So he now begins to feel shy. فَيَقُولُ لَهُ الْمَلَكُ. So the Malak replies back to him, yeah, يَا خَاطِعْ, oh the one who did wrong. أَفَلَا كُنْتَ تَسْتَحْيِي مِنْ خَالِقِكَ حَيْثُ عَمِلْتَهَا فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآنْ تَسْتَحْيِي مِنِّي. Yeah, he said, did you not feel embarrassed when you did these actions in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and now you feel embarrassed in front of me? Yeah, and he's telling him that what made you do what you did? What made you think you can get away with what you did? So he writes down everything that he did. And then he says, roll it up. So he rolls it up. And then he says, stamp it. Put your khatam on it. He says, with what will I do that? He says, with your fingernail. Yeah. So he does it. And then the angel does, ثُمَّ يُعَلِّقُهَا فِي أُنُقِهِ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. Yeah? And then he ties it around the neck of that individual until the day of judgment. And this is where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, says, come on, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Kama qala Allahu ta'ala, the way God has said in the Quran, wa kulla insanin alzamnahu ta'iruhu. Yeah? Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in Surah number 17 verse 13 says, and we have made every man's action cling to his neck. Yeah? This is that forever you will now be dealing in Barzakh with the positivities of your good action and the evils of your evil action, and you will have to pay the consequences. We all will have to pay the consequences of this. Inshallah, if God gives us enough life next week, we're going to be discussing what it means when we write our actions. Yeah? Is it merely a kitab, or is there another understanding that we can get? And it is very beautiful, the discussion of Barzakh. It is something that is lengthy in discussion. It will take us weeks, but I believe it will be worth it for us to get a better understanding on this subject. وآخر الدعوان أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. صدق الله العلي العظيم. ما على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. اللهم صل على خاتم النبيين وسيد المرسلين محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد، وصل على سيد الوصيين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام. اللهم صل على وآل محمد، وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد، وصل على سبتي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد، وصل على علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة القائم المهدي. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد صلاة لا غاية لعددها ولا نهاية لمددها ولا نفاد لأمدها. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات، وتابع بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'minin, as more brothers are coming, I really apologize. It's just for today. If we can have more people squeeze into the other hall, please. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Two people moved. Come on, guys. We can do better. Yeah? There is no room in there as well? There's no room? MashaAllah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It's an inconvenience that the gym is closed, but the fact that I see everybody in front of me is very nice. I pray it's closed every week. Yeah. This week I want to talk about a tragic event that happened on Monday here in Toronto, when a man was accused of stabbing two members of Canada's military at a recruitment facility in North York in Toronto. I'm not sure how many of you heard of this event. It was in the news. The man is currently under arrest and facing 9 charges in connection with the attack. He was just brought back to court today, in fact. The reason I mention this is because the man's name is Ayani Hassan Ali. Yeah, a 27-year-old Muslim man born in Montreal. And according to Toronto Police Chief Mark Saunders, that the man, once he was arrested, he professed or said that Allah told me to do this. Yeah. And Allah told me to come here and kill the people and to kill the people. Obviously, this is something which is tragic. We are saddened by the fact that the religion of Allah is being tarnished in this way. But also it is our responsibility to strongly and vehemently condemn this action of violence that was done. We as Muslims, can we get our attention here? Yeah. We as Muslims, are very quick to condemn actions when others do it to us. At the same time, we have to have that humanistic aspect of our side, that any act of violence that is done on any member of humanity and creation, regardless of who perpetrated that action, should be condemned. And here we strongly and vehemently condemn these actions perpetrated by this man. And of course, this is something that, this is another incident, along with many incidences that have happened previously, where the religion of the man is highlighted before anything else because the man was a Muslim. And we see the duplicity and the hypocrisy here that is happening. But at the same time, we are very, very hopeful that our Canadian brothers and sisters understand that this was an act of a man who was mentally unstable, right? And it was not an act that represents all of Islam, and they should not brush the entire religion with the same stroke of the brush. And the reason we are hopeful of that, right? That hope is based on the fact that we as Muslims are interacting in the wider society on a day in and day out basis, right? If we as Muslims do not interact with the wider society, then they have nowhere else to fall back on but to say, you see, Muslims are like this. Yeah? But if they can say, no, I know a Muslim guy at my work, I know a Muslim guy at my school, I know Muslims in my day-to-day interaction. When I go to the grocery store, I know this Muslim lady, for example. If they can reference back to a Muslim individual who they know personally in their wider connection or societal connection, then it will be much easier not to associate the entire religion of Islam with the deeds of one bad apple. Yeah? There are members of our Muslim community who feel it is better to isolate ourselves as Muslims, to not be involved with other non-Muslims, right? And this is a problem that we are going to face down the line if we continue to practice this level of isolation. We are going to burn all bridges at the end of the day, and there will come a time when there will be no one there to defend us and no one there to support us. And it's very important, my brothers and sisters, that we always conduct ourselves as part of a wider global society that we live in, because that is the society that we live in. And furthermore, when we are participating with the wider society, that first and foremost we are participating as Muslim Canadians. Yeah? The Muslim comes first. Yeah? That we are Muslims. And there's nothing wrong with being proud. The Jews call themselves what? Jewish Canadians. Yeah? They don't call themselves Canadian Jews. Right? The same way they put their heritage and they put their identity first. We as Muslims need to do that. But the requirement of participating in the wider society is absolutely needed. I want to talk about as well that this is not the first time that a member of a religious group has blamed their actions on God, yeah, for justifying what they have done. I just want to recall or point out a couple of examples of how this type of statement, God told me to do it, has come up throughout recent history. And I'm sure we can go back to centuries. But recent history, to point out that this happens all the time. In 2015, a man in Virginia shot and killed a TV anchor and a cameraman live, when they were live on camera, live on broadcast. And later when he was arrested, he said, God told me to do it. Yeah. In 2014, an elementary school teacher in California was seen attacking kids on skateboards and told that the higher power told me to attack them. In 2013, an Arizona mother was arrested after she allegedly tried to drown her 3-year-old son in a puddle and said that Jesus Christ told me to do it. In 2013, a 26-year-old man killed his grandmother while she ate breakfast, and he said that the angel Michael told him to do it. Yeah, and 2000, we go back and back. Yeah, that these type of incidences always happen. The most glaring of this is in 2003, George W. Bush. Yeah. said that I am driven with a mission from God. God would tell me, George, go and fight the terrorists in Afghanistan. And I did. Yeah. And then God would tell me, George, go and end the tyranny in Iraq. And so I did. Yeah. My point here in mentioning these things is that when actions like these are carried out, right, the entire religion is not painted with that evil brush. Yeah? No one takes the action of that mother who tried to kill their child and said that Jesus Christ told me and say, well, all Christians are like this, right? We have to also know these facts. We have to know. If we are not backed with facts, we're backed with emotions and we don't stand anywhere. Yeah, we need to be backed with facts. We need to be backed with logic when we talk to people who are going to easily accuse Islam for the actions of one individual, and remind them that, look, this has happened throughout, and always these people, except for the last example, have been claimed to be mentally unstable, right? And we have to understand and put that same logic and reason into these actions as well. We pray to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to hasten the return of our Imam. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صدق الله العلي العظيم